Hi, this is Gila. Welcome to my channel. As I'm a professional composer, I actually set this channel up to post some of my music online, and I do intend to post more in the future. I lived the first 40 years of my life in England before moving to Israel. And while life was very difficult for me at first here in Israel, nowadays I've been happily married for a number of years and life is good. Israel respects freedom of speech and the right to criticize and to express an opinion openly. But sadly, I've realized that the same is no longer entirely true in Britain. As someone who grew up hearing my parents talk about the sufferings and privations they and other British people went through when Britain fought against the tyranny of Nazism in the Second World War, and the great loss of life endured in many countries to ensure that future generations would be able to live and to prosper in freedom, I'm deeply saddened by the growing curtailment of human rights in my native country. Overzealous political correctness, the dangerous ambiguity contained within hate crime legislation, combined with a totally irresponsible immigration policy, has changed Britain drastically in only a generation or so. Frankly, I am outraged by the misuse of the mainstream media to label anyone who dares to stand up against what in the past would have been considered radically left-wing ideas as a supposed bigot or racist. And as someone who personally cares deeply about human rights, especially those of girls and women fighting against abusive treatment, I'm appalled by the refusal of police and local authorities to protect thousands of children from having their lives destroyed for many years to come by gangs whose members were nearly all Muslim men, simply because they were terrified of being called racist. The refusal of the mainstream media and successive British governments to acknowledge that Islamic ideology contains deeply offensive commandments with regard to the treatment of non-Muslims and is the true inspiration for nearly all outrageous terrorist attacks on other people in the world, and including in Israel, where we've suffered from them for rather longer than in the West. It's an appalling dereliction of duty. Islam, as presented in the Quran and Hadith, bears more resemblance to the supremacist, bigoted, and misogynistic ideas found in Nazi ideology than it does to any kind of path found in other mainstream religions, enabling adherents to become better, kinder, and more sensitive to all people, regardless of their differences and beliefs. And indeed, Adolf Hitler himself greatly admired Islam accordingly. Various people, most notably Tommy Robinson, have been outrageously persecuted and libeled by the establishment and mainstream media simply for daring to stand up and speak the truth about Islamic ideology. It was Tommy's shocking arrest in May 2018 and his subsequent incarceration that provided the impetus for me personally to start speaking out on my channel. Frankly, it appears that all Britons are on a path to less and less freedom, gradual curtailment of human rights, and to the humiliating subservience of dimitude under the oppression of Islamic Sharia law, or a bloody civil war, as happened in Lebanon when Muslims became the majority there. Everyone, including British Muslims, can only benefit ultimately from light being shone into the darkest places and the refusal to give in to any more to our freedoms and human rights being destroyed in the name of political correctness. The problem here is fundamentally one of ideology in Islam, not of Muslims as people, many of whom live good lives despite the darker side of their religion. All people, including Muslims, deserve to be treated with equal respect. But we need honesty. We need to rout out all terrorists, abusers, and other criminals. And we need our police and law courts to enforce justice properly and fairly. And we need to call a spade a spade. As I live in a free country, I feel I have a moral duty to speak out in support of Tommy Robinson and against the cowardly refusal of the establishment to protect its citizens from the gradual destruction of our once great country of Britain, which I love. If you believe in freedom and human rights, I would urge you to do the same, respectfully, but firmly and persistently. Whatever difficulties you may face personally from doing so, they will be as nothing compared with the appalling misery and carnage that is likely to ensue in Britain in the future if enough good people do not stand up now for what is right. Thank you so much for listening. Please feel free to subscribe if you agree with me. I'm not trying to monetize any of this. I do other things professionally. I simply care about freedom and human rights and Britain. Goodbye.